I think an important part of the stage two of the teach and learning critical pathway is the whole idea of a big idea and the concept of the big idea and how we introduce that concept to the teams and the teachers and to the schools. One way in which I noticed the school really engaged in big ideas was when they did do this whole idea of an area of focus. And I think the interesting thing about that area of focus was that they used the concept of agents of change. And they looked at it through a social justice standpoint. And they used Iqbal Masih, the carpet boy. And they really focused on how he was an agent, a change agent. And over the course of their 6 weeks, in terms of their pathway, they looked at a variety of texts that focused on agents of change, from Dr. Martin Luther King, from Nelson Mandela, and they looked even from the standpoint of child activists and adult activists, and looked at how were these people agents of change and what change did they make, leading kids to start thinking about how could I be an agent of change in my own community.
Right.
Now that I've learned about these agents who've made changes in a global perspective.
Right.
And what was neat about it is that when they did their task at the end, kids wrote responses about how they can be agents, how they can work and be activists in their own community, in their school, what they can do as how can they help their school in terms of cleaning up. How can I keep my school clean? How can I be an agent in that way? How can I help someone else if I'm a junior student with a primary student? It was absolutely powerful, but it was a nice way of which they took this great big overarching idea, big idea
Right.
of a change agent and make it into something that was teachable but fit within the pathway.
You know, another way that I've seen it work in a number of schools that I've worked in is that they actually looked at a wide array of different big ideas. One of the things that was really challenging is we had to first understand what a big idea was, right? And then after we as teachers figured that out, we looked at different books or different texts that contain big ideas. And what we did is many teachers actually created a big idea board in terms of what they had. Anytime they read a book, they actually looked at a big idea and they posted the big idea as to what that book contains. I think that was really important for them because what their focus was on analysis and be able to identify and to understand this is what I'm reading about, and this is what I think it is, and this is why I think it is, which is the evidence that we're talking about. That's really important for them to have an opinion and an informed opinion. So what they did is they had at the end of their 6 weeks, they had a wide array of ideas. They had many ideas that they looked at and said, you know what, this is a big idea, this is a big idea, and these are actually some other big ideas for them to look at.
Professional learning communities are transforming the culture of school systems. Professional learning is driven by the focus on student learning and the power of learning on the job. Discussion and action is centered on the interdependence of curriculum expectations, assessment of and for learning, thinking strategies, and teaching strategies. 2 or more PLC meetings are recommended. In this video, you'll see how one PLC has decided to work. Here are some suggestions on what to explore in Stage 2 TLCP actions. Plan a 6-week learning block and build collective understanding about how you are going to teach it. Focus on student learning, concentrating on students' work. Bring in student work and deconstruct using the rubric or criteria.
Some energy sources that never run out are called renewable energy sources.
I scored this in the low level 3 range for summarizing important ideas in your own words. I thought it was relatively effective. The nervousness that I had was around the in your own words. There were several times when he defaulted to reading right off the text. But there was enough of a departure from the text that I felt that it was hitting the sort of criteria that we have for summarizing, capturing the main ideas. So I gave it a low level 3 there. Supporting details were cited accurately. They were the appropriate details. And again, because he defaulted to reading from the text, I wasn't sure whether to give it a high degree of effectiveness or just considerable effectiveness. And I thought the length was appropriate to the task. So I give it a level 3 there as well.
I had it also at a level 3. The only area that, as you mentioned, that I would have lowered from the level 3 was our own words. And I know we've talked about that being a slightly separate idea than the actual picking out the key ideas. I felt that even though the student was deferring to the text a lot, they were able to like pull ideas from different sections, like in terms of the environmental impact, and they were able to articulate how the environmental impact played out in terms of the various renewable energy sources. So I felt that their comprehension was quite good. They got the bigger picture and they were able to adequately pick out the details. But I think that they got lost in having the text in front of them, and as a result that it wouldn't be a solid level 3 as well. So I would agree with you.
So saying like a 3 minus? And that's basically what you've talked about, the citing from the text is what brought them down.
I would definitely agree. That was the only area that I was a little concerned on, is how many times he went back and actually read pieces directly from the text. But overall, a good job.
But even when he read pieces from the text, he tried his best to put it in his own words, and I think sometimes the fault was because it was there, as you mentioned earlier.
He wasn't lifting complete sentences as they have done previously. He really did a good attempt.
Yeah, so I'd agree with the sort of 3 minus edge, so that area, because he fulfilled everything else, but again, some parts were done in, he had read from the text.
Suggest next steps in the improvement process.
Now that we've discussed that the summary should be approximately level 2, is there anyone has suggestions for me on what I should bring back and tell her what we, her or myself, need to help her along to improve her summary?
I would just encourage use of written graphic organizer to organize thoughts.
I agree. I also think it would be interesting to have her listen to her response and use the same rubric we did, because I think she would realize where there are areas that need improved growth. But I think that the graphic organizer or a format that she can use when she retells or summarizes a nonfiction piece would be helpful.
Share teacher practice as it relates to student learning and the big idea. Talk about best practice. Make a commitment to learning by doing, our actions between now and the next meeting. Professional learning is the difference that is making the difference. It provides schools the best opportunity to imagine ways and means to improve student learning by doing. It is small, focused, and precise steps to improve the learning chances of all students. Professional development, the notion of providing teacher development based on theory and strategy, turns out to be too far removed from classroom practice. Professional learning changes the school culture by holding everyone accountable for results. The PLC affords the chance to really embrace the belief and understandings that all students can learn and all teachers can teach to high standards.
We revisit our expectations that we chose. We cluster in additional expectations that are necessary, and it could be some writing ones as well. We look at the criteria of what we want our students to be able to do, and we're all on board with that criteria. And that we think about, how is that instruction going to look?
Right.
How does that look in my classroom? And do I have the resources, the type of materials, the rich text, the quality text, in order to be able to have that thinking be a part of the conversation with my students?
Yeah, and I think everyone needs to be involved.
Oh,
in that.
absolutely.
I think we need to value, what teachers have to say. We need to value their opinions. We need to have a safe atmosphere. Otherwise, we're going to get very closed conversations. So I think there needs to be some safety. And I think one of the ways to do that, or to help achieve that, is by focusing on the student work. What is the work telling us? What does this work say for this student that I need to do with this student? If we're looking at my students and my classroom as a whole, what is it that we need to work on with their students? What is my next lesson going to be? And I think that's what we talk about, is that we have the work, we need that. Otherwise, we're just having opinions. We're just sharing opinions of what we think it is. And those things really get lost. I don't think those lead to directions as much as a tangible piece of student work, or we call them evidence, to actually say, this is why I'm making these decisions in my instruction. And I think that's key.
I think that leads into the second task. of that stage, which
Right.
is when we finish planning, we go off and we try something. We try a task, but we bring that evidence back.
Well, I think one of the things that I've found with the teacher moderation is that it's great because it aligns our staff. We have sat as a junior team, and I know that the grade 4 teacher, this is a level 3 in their classroom, and this is what a level 3 would look in a grade 5, and as a grade 6 teacher, this is what a level 3 should look like. So it's consistent when we're looking to level.
And I'm connecting to that it allows us to all be responsible for the kids. It builds that sense of community that all the kids are everyone's responsibility as learners.
We know that when you interpret those categories of knowledge and skills, and when you interpret those expectations from the curriculum documents, that those interpretations are aligned, that your level 3, your level 2 is what we expect in the classroom, and that they're not watered down, or you're not too hard on those students. And from a whole school perspective, it's so important not just to be honed in only in on your grade, like you said, Neil, that you know where they're coming from in grade 4 as the grade 5 teacher, and you know where you need to put them forward as the grade 6 teacher, because we have undergone teacher moderation throughout the year and have built a really cohesive and strong culture as a team.
And it allows for a safe environment for you to try new practices and to build your expertise with other people supporting and giving ideas.
Yeah, as you're sitting there and looking and saying, wow, the student really didn't get this. What do you think? It's really neat to bounce that idea off another junior teacher that said, oh, well, I tried this. And it might be something you never ever thought of trying, and you put it in your class, and that's what's going to work for that group of students that you have that year. And it might not work the next year, but at least you have that now to put in your bank of strategies that you can use and apply.
I think that goes back as well, that teachers are sharing more with this approach than they were ever before.
It guides our PD as well, because this year, after taking that moderation time, then we realized, wow, we need to get a plan here for our schools, and here's a writing plan that we need to follow, and when are we hitting those, so we can, for example, when we look in grade 6, they're going to focus on these 3 text forms and get a deeper, spending 4 to 6 weeks getting a deeper digging down so that we really understand them. Still covering them all, but we know that that'll happen in grade 6, because we know in grade 5 what they've already covered.
The precision teaching is really impacted from the teacher moderation process.
I think it enables you to plan more systematically and really target specific areas.
Welcome back to Reader's Workshop. We're going to get started today with our 3rd Cynthia Rylant book, and you guys have become real experts thinking about Cynthia Rylant. An Angel for Solomon Singer is the one we're going to start today. Let's take a look at the title, An Angel for Solomon Singer. Let's take a look at the pictures on the front. Does anybody have any predictions or thoughts about what this could be about? Connor?
Maybe it's sort of like Fly Away Home, because he doesn't have a home maybe, and he lives in an abandoned hotel.
Great. Connor, would you come up and put that on our first opinion? So today I had the kids coming up and writing their questions and their opinions about the text as we were reading it. And the reason I was doing that was to lead again towards independence with them, of one, valuing their thinking and showing that it's valued, and having them connect that oral work that we do talking about text to actually writing it.
Why doesn't Solomon Singer just make sure he saves up all his money, just uses it for a bit of groceries, and gets back home to Indiana?
Great question, Faye. Maybe we should write that down. I wonder why he doesn't go back to Indiana if he loves it so much. And then eventually what I will do is I'll move the questions and opinions to our strategy spotlight wall over here. And that is our strategy spotlight is the focus that we work on during our reading time, during our reader's workshop for about 6 to 8 weeks. And so we really just hone in on an idea, and that gives kids a sense of grounding and where to come to a text from. Great.
If I were the main character, I would go back to I would leave the hotel and go back where I used to live. My question is, why is his last name Singer?
We don't know why his last name's Singer yet, do we? But Michael, I like what you said there. If we think about our CN Tower, that's one of those higher level thinking questions, isn't it? You put yourself in the character's shoes, and you're thinking if you were the main character, you would go back home. I wonder why he doesn't go back home. What I do every day during a reader's workshop time is a read aloud, think aloud with the kids, where I've chosen a text intentionally, been intentional about choosing it, and read part of it with them. I never read a whole book in one day usually, and I allow the kids to question and develop opinions and record those while we're actually reading. Why do you think maybe he couldn't have a pet? John?
I have an opinion for that.
Oh, great. What's your opinion for Lily's question?
In most buildings, you can't have pets since there's a lot of people living in it, and some people don't like pets and some people are allergic.
That's true, John. All of those things are true. Would you add that to our opinions so we can be thinking about that, Peter? And this, I feel, helps kids dive deeply into the text and to think about it as we're going and to be actively engaged in it. And I stop them at a certain point where right before I feel the text is going to take a turn and tell us what's going to happen, and I have the kids respond to open response questions. Okay, so as you get to work in your reading response journals, I've given each of you a copy of the questions so that you can use them at your desks. We'll start our reading response journals just as always with the title and the date, and then please give me your opinions and your thoughts to these questions with the pictures as well, and then we'll come back to the share chair and share the ideas afterwards. Today when I was working with the kids, I realized in myself some bias that I have around thinking about homelessness or people in shelters, and I realized that as the kids were sharing their ideas, because they're so honest with what they have to share, and I think part of this kind of work really deals with addressing bias, which I think is a big part of critical literacy. And it makes me realize why this is so important to talk about with young children at a very young age. Some people might think that this type of text is not appropriate or necessary for kids, but I really would argue that it is choosing texts that have deep issues that kids can relate to. So from a very young age, getting them to think about issues of bias, getting them to think about common human experiences and what connects all of us despite race or gender or age or any of that. What are those things that people feel, and that how can we connect to one another? And I think that's really key for children at a young age, at the primary age, to start thinking about as readers, and not just to be saved for the later years. So guys and girls, please stop what you're doing, tuck in your chairs, and come join me back at the carpet. We're going to get to hear from you now. We're going to get to hear all those great ideas. Who would like to come on up to the share chair first and share your opinions?
If I put myself in Solomon Singer's shoes and I was living in a home that I didn't like, I would miss love and miss my comfy bed, because if I don't have love, then no one would care for me.
Today also we saw a variety of the curriculum expectations happening all at once. We saw kids talking with one another and developing opinions. We saw them making mental images, closing their eyes and thinking about what they saw, and incorporating the oral and the writing and the reading all at once. And I think that's all what critical literacy looks like. It's all embedded in that. It's not one particular topic that we address